Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Isaac Chavez. This is going to be for my presentation project for CRJ 306, Race, Ethnicity, and Crime. It's going to be elaborating on issues facing minority youth in 2021. I wanted to touch on a few issues that minority issues face, not only locally in my community here in Los Angeles County, California, but also nationwide. I also want to reflect on the local program that is positively influencing young minorities that could be at risk, that's providing a lot of guidance in the form of education, youth activity leagues, in addition to just a positive structure to help aid these kids who come from lower income, kind of underdeveloped communities. I'm going to elaborate on issues facing minority youth that most of us should be familiar with. In addition to that, hopefully bring up a few things that not everyone is familiar with that can kind of shed light on a few issues that I think have a direct correlation between crime and minorities in our communities. Starting off, I would like to, sorry. Um, So starting, I want to focus on some of the issues that face our minority youth in my local communities and probably communities across the nation. Things including family structure, neighborhood, socioeconomic status, peer pressure, alcohol, mental illnesses, and how they all kind of tie together and have a direct correlation with criminal activity and deviance with youth in our minority communities and families. Hey everybody. So I wanted to start off with neighborhoods. Neighborhoods that I wanted to focus on were pretty much minority communities where there's a prevalence of gang activity, low income housing, things with diminished economic opportunities for families, and how the neighborhoods and the environment that they grow up in kind of shape in youth who are pretty much fragile minds as it is, how they shape the people they become, the decisions they make, what kind of activities they engage in, and how, you know, trying to change that, positively change that, can have a dramatic effect on the development of an individual and kind of gear them or steer them in the right direction when it comes to engaging in positive activities or engaging in a life of crime. So I know we talk a lot about, I just referenced neighborhoods, but socioeconomic challenge areas, areas riddled with poverty, and how that can obviously affect youth minorities in their decision making, whether they want to, engage in criminal activity. It's pretty much people becoming a victim of their surroundings than victim of their society. That's a pretty common area. Another area I wanted to focus on was more referring to parental supervision. From that to parental supervision, in addition to those children, these minorities who grow up in households without any father figure. Although that might seem like a family structure issue, lack of parental supervision, I think that the absentee fatherhood has a dramatic impact on whether an individual engages in crime later on in life through their adolescence or through their youth into their adolescence and into adulthood. Bringing up some numbers right now. So, according to the Texas Department of Corrections, 85% of youth who are currently in prison grew up in a fatherless home. 7 out of 10 youth that are housed in state operated correctional facilities, including detention programs, residential treatment, come from a fatherless home, and that's from the U.S. Department of Justice. So, those are very big indicators of how important family structure and especially growing up without a father plays into the criminal justice system and how these minority communities are affected by that. So, in addition to the two statistics I just laid out for you right now, 57% of fatherless homes in the United States involved African American black households. 31% of the fatherless rate were Hispanic households, and that is all in comparison to 20% for Caucasian white families. In addition, 44% of children in homes headed by a single mother are living in poverty. 12% of children are married couple families are living in poverty, and that's all from the U.S. Census Bureau. So I think that it's important to understand that how all these things are connected, especially how they affect the minority youth. Because for one, minority youth, not all, but a large percentage of them come from these type of neighborhoods, and these neighborhoods are have a prevalence to have, you know, lack of family structure, lack of parental guidance, lack of resources that are available to them, so they engage in these different activities. So when we talk about the issues facing the youth minorities, these are pretty much the keys of the castle as far as what is a central like driving factor and how to kind of analyze it from a criminologist perspective in order to kind of see about what resources would work best in certain areas, but also how it's all tied together from poverty to your socioeconomic status to your household to your peers. It all kind of blends in together. The one thing I didn't mention was talking about mental illness in youth minorities. So another statistic from the U.S. Census Bureau: children who live in a single-parent home are more than 2 times likely to commit suicide than children in a two-parent home. So, with all this being said, and noting all the above, the aforementioned issues that I think plague youth minorities, and especially kind of leave that culture and that class kind of at a disadvantage, is all the things that I mentioned above, whether it be your neighborhood, your community, your lack of resources, your lack of family structure, um, your more willingness to engage in criminal activity, engage in drugs, alcohol, and how it all can affect you moving forward through your youth while you're really impressionable, and then affect you later on through life. So, talking about a positive program locally that I know personally through my work experience is the LA County Sheriff's Youth Activity League. It's actually called the Youth Activity Resource Center. That's the main department. The Youth Activity League is used by stations throughout the county, and they have resource officers that pretty much bridge the gap between community and law enforcement. And I'll kind of go over how that all works. Um, the program is available to ages 7 to 17, and there's no fee. They offer resources in the form of academic tutoring. They go all the way to athletics, life skills, recreational activities, artwork, and fun. I know through personal experience, they do a program called Beat the Streets. Now, this is for people who do grow up in these kind of inner communities where they're more prone to violent activities, and you get these, you know, individuals from all walks of life, but in the minority communities that have a propensity for violence, and they want to have an outlet for that violence. And what they do is like we have a lot of resource deputies and volunteer work that people that come in, they bring these kids in, they teach wrestling and also some MMA boxing skills to these kids that allow a positive outlet to release their you know, frustrations, and kind of actually learn a skill rather and use it positively rather than negatively. Um, the goal of the Youth Activity Sports League is to lead, empower, inspire. It's pretty much led by a lot of dedicated deputies that were either appointed there or wish to work there. A lot of mentors, coaches, because I think a lot of the biggest issue with the youth minorities is the lack of mentoring, the lack of um, stability, the lack of guidance, and that this program provides this in a variety of ways. So whether you're so as far as the Youth Activity Resource Center, that does provide a positive outlet and a positive program for individuals to kind of express their uniqueness and find an outlet to positively affect their community rather than becomes victims of their society. This is the reason I bring this to your attention is because of the pandemic. the George Floyd incident, a lot of the racial tension between law enforcement officers and the community, not in all communities, but some. There has been media outcry for police reform in the form of defunding the police and defunding an array of programs that are associated within our department that go to programs such as this, but things that are also bigger, such as um, Special Victims Bureau, in addition to major crimes, other units of assignment that really keep our streets safe. But the LA County Board of Supervisors voted to approve slashing $145 million from the LA County Sheriff's Department's budget. So with that being done and the lack of funding to the LA County Sheriff's Department, a lot of what's been happening is there's it's going to lead to, it already has, but the lack of youth activity leaders, sheriffs, deputies that were available to be appointed in these, specific positions that did impact the community positively, whether it be bridging the gap between law enforcement and community, or providing resources at local schools, or youth activity programs. We pretty much are at a standstill because they're taking these positions away and forcing these deputies and people who are appointed to go back to other positions because of the lack of funding and the lack of personnel and resources available. Um, so this was, I believe, the vast cuts of the safety and public department were primarily due to AB 109 revenue. Now, this is revenue that the county receives from the state, which is dependent upon sales tax. The LA County Sheriff, uh, Sheriff Villanueva, stated that there was alternative means to find the resources available to make sure that the programs like these never left. However, as of now, unfortunately, the department is kind of seeing the leaks, and we're kind of experiencing the cuts that the board has put forth for for Los Angeles County, and I'm sure across areas across the nation. But this leads to a few other things I wanted to talk about in terms of how the youth minorities are affected in the criminal justice system. There were two incidences I want to go over. So, in regards to the youth and how our minority youth are affected in the criminal justice system, specifically in court and the sentencing, is I think important to kind of have a understanding of how they are affected and how they're portrayed within the criminal justice system. Uh, this is coming straight from the book. It says youth in general and the youth minority males in particular often are demonized by legislators, the media, scholars, and public at large. These attacks reinforce stereotypes and place a particularly heavy burden on young black and Latino males. And I believe that they were focusing on, there was a case with an individual who was 13 years old, named by the name of Nathaniel Brazil. And this occurred in Florida, where he shot and killed a 30-year-old, I believe he was like a 30-year-old seventh grade teacher. He was ended up being tried as an adult. I guess his statement was he meant to scare the teacher. He ended up killing him. Uh, he was tried as an adult at the age of 13. He is still in a Florida correctional facility, will not be released until 2028. And so, with that being said, minorities are often tried as adults in the case of a juvenile crime more often than whites for the same crime. There was also another case, speaking off topic, in regards to the Central Park Five. In the Central Park Five, it was detailing a brutal assault and rape of a female jogger back in 1989 in New York Central Park. During this incident, she was mugged, or she was brutally assaulted and raped, and five individuals were wrongfully convicted of the crime, but they ended up trying a 16-year-old as an adult during that time. it kind of brings forth. There is case law behind that. I believe it is Sanford versus Kentucky. The court case of Sanford versus Kentucky is a court case sanctioned uh, the imposition of the death penalty on offenders who were at least 16 years old at the age of the crime. Um, in addition to that, there's a lot of back and forth debate about whether individuals who are under the age of 18 being tried as adults for crimes in which a death occurred. A lot of people feel that it's a violation of Eighth Amendment rights, but I think it goes back and forth to a lot of the criminal justice imperfections within our system. So, the biggest issues I wanted to bring forth during this presentation were the issues that minority families and minority youth are affected by throughout all of our communities, and that's peer pressure, that is our socioeconomic status, that is our neighborhoods, that is our family structure, that is our lack of fathers in the minority community, and how all these things tied together play an integral part in the criminal justice system, and is proven with our statistics of those who are in the correctional facility right now. So think about positively impacting those ways, finding a way to infiltrate those kind of areas, provide other resources, and you're not going to save everybody, but I think that you can at least make an effort to provide resources for those that would never have them available in the first place. That's why I'm an advocate for the youth activity, or for the youth activity center that the Sheriff's Department puts forth. I think it's a great program. I think that it does wonders for the community. I think that it's pretty much centrally located to help out those in the underdeveloped neighborhoods with poverty, with single mothers. So if you can take even a little bit of a change, I think it can have a great deal of an impact on your society, and also hopefully bring forth a lot of change within our criminal justice system. So thank you for your time. I appreciate everything.